Yeah, why don't we just kick in and just
Yeah, no,
what is it you guys think is give me a price point. What is affordable audio?
Good question.
Yeah.
Per component.
We'll do both if you want.
Okay.
Hold on. What's that?
$1,000 or less.
$1,000 or less? That's all right.
Is 2,000 still in the ballpark? See, to me, 2,000 looks like a sweet point. You know, it's like it really gets good, and after that, you have to kind of go, what's going on here?
Yeah.
But 2 is high. I couldn't afford 2.
There was an article
I really
written back
couldn't.
in 2012, I think, on Stereophile. I think it was Art Dudley's column complaining about the average price at the last audio show he had just come from, where the price was $20,000. That was the average
Yikes.
price per component of new products
Yeah.
that were at that show. Do you want to say something?
Yeah. John Atkinson just released a album from the Portland State Chamber Choir.
Right.
Sounds
awesome.
Really?
Since I went to grad school at Portland State, I'm around a lot of people, and they bought it and love it. And one of the things that I was suggesting that people really liked was a NAD,
Yeah.
the 3020D, and
Yes.
the small ELAC debut speakers. And people are saying, hey, this is really good. And the NAD's $300, and the other speakers are like $240. And if you got somebody like me that'll help them with the wire so they don't get shafted, you get a nice.
Shafted by the wire.
We could go a long ways on that, but we won't.
I'll make
And
any of that. That's fine.
that was, to me, you could get a really nice, simple sounding system for
Yeah.
not really much money. And that's coming from people who just
Right.
like classical music.
Steve, do you remember that talk we did? I don't remember when it was, with John Darko.
An affordable audio. Yes, I remember.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah, it was
but that
good.
was much more affordable. So, since you guys are more high-end than I expected, I have a question that sort of changes it slightly. And that is, how many of you have helped people, your friends or relatives and stuff, buy an affordable, which we'll call, like, say, under $1,000
There we
system?
go.
So, yes,
There we
thank you
go.
for doing that. 'Cause
Evangelists all.
It's important to spread the word. And, it's frustrating to me that a lot of people buy, $300 Bluetooth speakers or something, and that's their hi-fi. When for $300, they could buy those ELAC speakers, they could buy the Pioneer speakers and a Onkyo receiver. I did an 8020, which is $149, and if you insist on Bluetooth in your hi-fi, you can buy the Yamaha RS202 and be under $300. So when someone could say, well, I can't afford that good stuff. Yeah, I understand. But for the $300 you spend on a Bluetooth speaker, you could have something that sounds a lot better. And the thing that is important about making things sound better is it's a crazy idea. If it sounds better, you're more likely to actually listen to it as opposed to having it on in the background. And once people start listening, well, then there's a possibility that some of them will want to hear something that sounds better. And that is the key, Because to me, what makes someone an audiophile isn't how expensive their hi-fi is. It's whether or not they listen. It could be a $12, let me get it right, the KZ ATE in-ear headphone, which is actually a very nice headphone for $12. So once they start listening, they'll want better. And then they'll come to the Rocky Mountain Audio Fest. But that's where it all comes from, because a lot of people don't have money to spend on nice stuff, and that's okay. They can buy used stuff. They can go to a thrift store and find something that might be working. So the cost of entry shouldn't be the limitation whether someone has a nice hi-fi. And that's how you spread the word.
And thank you for coming.
And thank you
We're
for
done.
coming. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
No, this is an amazing crowd. Thank you, guys.
Do you want to just take some questions from the field?
Yeah, let's take questions.
Yeah.
I always wonder where the sweet spot is. I mean, I have a lot of interests, a lot of hobbies. I can't afford the best of everything. So, where is that sweet spot where you spend X amount to get good performance, and you spend a lot more to get marginally,
It's a slippery slope.
Well, there's usually a need.
Well, can I
Yeah.
actually, I'd like to answer that question, because that's what you just described what I perceive as my job at Stereophile.
The sweet
Is
spot.
to address that sweet spot. And I've been struggling because when I came back I'd been out of audio for like 10 years, and I got this job, and I looked around to see what everyone else is doing. I saw one of our reviewers says $30,000 interconnects, 1 meter. And I'm going, okay, now, and then Mikey's doing this, and I said, what do I want to do? And I said, I looked back at all those sort of historical products where they were really great, like the Adcom 555, NAD 3020. And I said, okay, can you still make a system for say 2,000 to 5,000, a whole system? And I've tried to come up with systems at $2,000, and Steve helps me with that. But I think you can put together. I just reviewed an Outlaw receiver with Magnapan .7s. That's everything for $2,000.
That's a pretty amazing system.
It's a $2,000 system that I guarantee anyone would sit there and go. And the guy behind it's the guy behind the 3020 NAD. So he knows. Yeah, because it takes two things, I think, to make a really great sounding audio component at a reasonable price. First of all, it takes someone who can hear a good product and say, oh, look, it's a good product and it sounds good. And then you have to have the willingness to sell it inexpensively. If you make a cartridge and you say, oh, this is the best cartridge I ever heard, how much should we charge? $10,000. I mean, if you charge $2,000, nobody's going to buy it.
Right.
Nobody's going to buy it. They're not going to believe. But I swear to you, you can, for under $3,000, you can put together a system that'll get you huge chunks of everything you read about in the magazine I write for.
Absolutely. Many. And by the way, the other speaker, because magnetophones don't fit in every room, would be the KEF LS50, which is $1,500. And use that with the Outlaw receiver.
The LS50. The LS50 wireless, have you seen that?
Yeah, yeah.
It's kind of all in one. All you need is
gets rid of the
power
amplifier,
cords.
right.
So you've got and a digital source. You could stream right to it. It's $2,500, and here we go. It's the slippery slope, right?
But the Wharftail's only $449, and I like it more than the LS50.
Check you out, talking smack. Here we go. Throwdown. So I think the question of a knee, I think there are many knees where things you actually will spend a whole lot more to get very little more, right? And I think that the market is kind of replete with these, but it really, I think, depends. So Herb just said right around $2,000 he saw a pretty big knee. I saw a really big knee right around $500 and around $10,000, right? So going from 10 to 20 doesn't get you a whole lot, at least in my experience. But you know, these gentlemen will probably move that number around. But the point is that there are inflection points. I really incredibly encourage anybody who is either a reader or a potential buyer to play, to talk to people, to try stuff out. You don't have to spend more to get more. I think that's a good lesson.
But I think the hard part about answering those kind of questions is there's so many variables in terms of what that person's, how big is their room, what kind of music do they listen to? Do they listen fairly quietly? Do they have parties? Those things can radically shift how much the budget should be to make them happy in that, for their money.
Right.
So, because, in New York, some people live in tiny closets, and some people live in huge spaces. So, if somebody says to me, oh, I want a really nice system when I spend $1,000, and I ask them, so how big is your room? They say, oh, I live in a loft, and it's, 3,000 square feet. I say, well, I don't know, $500 for $1,000 for 3,000 square feet doesn't sound like you're going to get there. I'm sorry, you got to spend a little more.
Well, there's one rule that, even if I forget everything else to say, that I want to mention, and it applies at all the price levels, but particularly at the low. You can't find what you're not looking for. You're only going to buy a system as good as you're willing or able to recognize the quality of the sound. And that requires connoisseurship. It requires practice. It requires listening. And it doesn't require like following reviews by any of us. It requires like, oh, damn, that's pretty good. That's 99% of getting, I think, a budget hi-fi that's really special. Oh, yeah.
You had a question?
was wondering about interconnects. How much did you spend on interconnects?
$1 bazillion.
30,000 per meter.
Free. I'm sorry.
This man
I
here.
like Home Depot, zip line wire for my speaker.
I think the point is that there is no consensus, right? I will offer that wire matters in my personal experience.
Yes.
That's my belief. That said, everything matters.
Yes.
The trick is that not everything matters very much. So, your room is going to be a big driver. Your drivers are going to be big drivers. Your amplifier matching to your speakers are going to be a big driver, and that's important. That matching bit, right? Just because it's a great amp and a great speaker doesn't mean they're a great system. Your interconnects or speaker cables or power cords, all of that stuff matters. I just don't know that it matters as much as some of those other bits are. But if you've already sunk a whole ton of money into your system and you kind of like it and you're looking to play, then why not? I think that cables or tweaks or footers and all that crap, all that stuff can matter, right? It's just, it may not necessarily matter in the way that you want it to, in the sense that it may change your sound. It just may not change it the way you want it.
Right.
It may not make it better.
Well, I'm going to bring up three words, brick and mortar. So, I think I started out as a hi-fi salesman, a high-end salesman for Sound by Singer in New York. And I used to tell people, and I wasn't bragging, that I knew more about what's out there than Harry Pearson or John Atkinson, because reviewers, like I am now, you basically hear things sequentially. I'm reviewing this, then I'm reviewing this, then I'm reviewing this. But you work in a big hi-fi store, and you're hearing all the stuff in the store in different combinations, and more important than that, you're hearing it in people's homes. So my knowledge base, especially then, of what something sounds like was based on all of that. So if you have a Krell amplifier and a Conrad Johnson preamplifier and Wilson speakers, and you say to a dealer, what are you familiar with that? How those things work together, and then what cables would work with that system and what you want that to be. That's how you get to the answer. But to say that one cable, an AudioQuest cable, is going to sound better than a Cardis cable, I don't know. It depends on what's at the either end of the cable. It's hard, but that's actually what dealers do when they're good dealers and they're helpful dealers and knowledgeable. That's what they bring to the party that magazines can't do and the internet can't do, because it's all how it all works together.
Can I second that? Just get it. Can I get an on-man on that one? Thank you very much. Right? Yes. Do yourself a favor. Those brick and mortars that are still around, I really hope they stick around, because when they're gone, we will lose the tribal wisdom of collected wisdom, I guess you could say, of 100 years less of high-end audio.
Absolutely.
It will be a crushing loss.
Even though I think an audience that's here to hear about affordable hi-fi.
Yeah, go talk to a
It's
dealer.
probably really big on cutting out the middleman.
Yeah.
And, I have to say, I'm not plugging brands, but I believe Shit Audio has really changed the whole game plan at the affordable level.
Shit.
I mean,
Hot shit.
absolutely. I mean, and I mentioned Outlaw. Again, these are online only.
Mm-hmm.
Except for the shitter in California. They have a brick and mortar.
Right. But my point is, I suspect people that are trying, and I'm just speaking on your behalf, not my behalf,
Careful.
that the people who are trying to buy a $2,000 or $5,000 system, there is the virtue of cutting out the middleman. The bad part is you're on your own, man. And if you buy turntables and you're not good at setting them up, I wouldn't,
Does
I'd
anybody here
stay
use
away.
a high-end audio forum? Use one, listen to one, read one. Anybody here? I will make fun of you.
Really?
Absolutely. I'll tell you why. Because those high-end forums, the people that go on there know stuff. It just doesn't necessarily match up to what they say. So I'm going to come back and say the truth of the matter is you, right? Not what you read, though that does have an impact on value. I know from personal experience that I indulged in quite a bit of upgrade-itis, chasing reviews, but more importantly, chasing my friends on high-end audio forums who did that one comparison. right? Again, isolated, not in a system, not necessarily with experience with everything else I knew, and I spent way too much freaking money. So you could spend more money going through a brick and mortar, but you may end up spending less over time because you may not upgrade. I think one of our main problems in this hobby is that we are rarely satisfied. Who here has bought one component and stuck with that component their entire life? So why aren't there more hands?
That's a lot.
I'm old, they wear out.
Yeah, okay, right. That's fair.
Especially DACs and CD players.
But I just remembered that regarding your cable question, you know, there's this website called the Cable Store, cable company.
Cable
store?
company.
Yep, right. So you can buy on loan, let's say, 3, 4, 5 interconnect cables, right? They send you the cables. Now, the cables they're sending you are loaners. So it's not like, oh, I'll just keep this one. You're going to send all the cables they send you back, no matter what. But if you say, you know, I like the Cardus more than the Synergistic, then they'll sell you the one that you like. So you do get to try them at home, which is ultimately the best way. So interconnect cables, speaker cables, digital cables, et cetera, and I think that's a terrific service. So maybe that can help you.
I think it's pretty cool.
It's
The
called-
Cable Company.
And they also do headphones, or they used to.
I have the exact opposite question about, so it's about wireless speakers. Yeah.
Talk to these guys.
It's got two parts.
Talk to Steve.
It's got two parts. If you're going to invest in a wireless speaker system, Sonos, and that kind of thing,
Yeah.
what is, number one, what's the best system?
You shouldn't be in this room.
What's the best system you've heard? Is it worthwhile? And have you heard the new Apple speaker that hasn't come out yet?
Steve?
No.
I honestly,
I am
I think the best one that I've heard recently was the LS50 wireless, and it sounds different. Take that back. It doesn't sound different over Wi-Fi versus wire because it's just a network streaming. It's got a little bit of a buffer on the back end, and it sounds fine. It sounds quite good. Does it sound better plugged in directly to a $20,000 source like an Arender W20? Yeah,
It's kind of pricey, though.
It does. It's a little ridiculous. But that $2,500 speaker is all inclusive and it sounds pretty good. But you know, I don't know where Steve's gonna go on this or what he wants to say, but I am not greatly impressed with Bluetooth sound or other Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi may be different, but Bluetooth, not really a fan. So I find that a wire almost always makes a better sounding system.
You know what's great? The Bluetooth is, sounds worse and costs more. So that doesn't work for me. It has dropouts.
Yeah,
there's
usually
a
not.
lot of issues.
I have to ask one more question.
Wait. So I've been a basher of Bluetooth for years, and an hour before I walked into this room, Michael Goodman from Centrance played me an amazing product. It's a Bluetooth amplifier. It's a balanced headphone amplifier. So it's going from your phone, or with a cable, but the way he demoed it was with Bluetooth. So from your phone to this balanced headphone amplifier to a pair of Mr. Speaker's headphones. And I was blown away. It was really, really good. It's $350 for the Bluetooth balanced headphone amplifier. It was fantastic. That doesn't address the wireless speaker question, but I just thought I'd finally say something nice about Bluetooth.
I never heard
Somebody
you
write
say
that
anything
down.
ever nice about it.
Yeah, somebody write that down. Call Guinness. Question in the back.
It seems that home theater has really hurt the brick and mortar audio business in the last 30 years. There used to be a lot of audio shops. Now it's most of them have gone to home theater and very little selection for stereo audio, stereo.
Is there a question there?
Best way to save money is not have a TV. Put the money into your phono
He
cartridge.
doesn't have a TV.
I've never owned a TV.
Doesn't have a TV.
Like I've had a TV. I got into high-end audio through home theater. I love having giant screens with really loud noises. I gotta be honest. I really enjoy being married. And home theater and marriage or having a relationship is, just do yourself a favor, turn the damn TV off, put on a record. I mean, seriously, get off your ass, change the record. It's good for you.
Yes, it's aerobic.
It's good for you. It's aerobic. It's aerobic. Tell that to your doctor.
But let me ask real quick. How many people use Tidal?
Tidal streaming?
Tidal.com.
Tidal streaming.
Absolutely.
That's
my
not
phone.
very many. Pardon?
Because it's
That's a great way to save money. And the quality is super high.
Nobody that, like the kids and stuff like that I encounter on a regular basis,
My kids use it.
they've never even heard of it.
My kids are nerds.
Well,
But they're around you. I'm talking about people like
They are around me.
Valley of the Sun.
but what about fellow audiophiles? I'm surprised. That
Anybody
seems
here
like
use
very
Spotify?
few people.
Spotify? Apple Music? Tidal? No, who uses Spotify or Apple Music? Anybody else? So who streams audio? All right.
Look, yeah, a lot of people stream.
Sorry, Steve.
There's reviewers who that rely almost exclusively at this point on Tidal.
So here's a plug. We're going to do a streaming or file-based audio versus physical media audio
Tomorrow.
And I'm going to be on that panel, so some of you guys should come back and you can watch me bash.
He's not gonna
streaming.
spoil it.
Yeah.
He's totally
I
gonna
just,
bash.
yeah, I'm going to bash it.
If you're looking to save money, actually it's cheaper to go out and buy CDs at 50 cents a CD from your
Is it?
local pawn shop or your garage sales,
Yeah.
and you get 20 or 10 to 20 songs on it versus paying 99 cents a song off of the places that you buy things from.
There you go.
Absolutely. This
Well, related to that though, is the convenience. You can't beat the convenience of streaming. I can pull up my phone and, hey, I heard this song on the radio, but I want to listen to it for me. So I can pull open my phone with Tidal on my system that I have at work and just play that song.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
I can take all those songs
I
that
do
I
that
have
all the
and
time.
Lock it up in the back
rip 'em,
row.
which I've done, and I can listen to them anytime that I want.
Anybody here do vintage or old stuff? I don't mean to bring it back in, but do you guys, who here goes out and buys vintage stuff? And I mean by vintage stuff that you did not buy new.
Yeah, or used.
Exactly. I'm not making a distinction between equipment or music.
No.
If you want to save some money, right? Some of this old amplifiers, if you don't, as long as like the caps and stuff haven't gone bad, you can save a ton of money and get incredible sound.
in some cases better than you can get today.
Yes, sometimes.
So that brings up the issue, then you got all these guys up here showing their wares.
Yeah.
$20,000, and most of us are gonna wait until we find it on Craigslist
Ah.
or someplace else cheaper. I mean,
Yeah.
is that a business plan?
Are you saying you're
But they're
cheap?
not, you're not their customer, that's all.
Yeah.
Because somebody will buy it in order for you to buy it used, right? So the deals are made, the sales are made, just not to you.
Even though the best vintage gear, and I come out of a background like in the 80s I bought and sold Western Electric, Marantz, and Macintosh tube gear for a living, and old turntables like the 124. Besides the fact, I wish I'd kept most of what I sold. You really save money when it goes up in value every year, a lot. But some of the best stuff I've ever heard, like the old Sony headphones, the R10s.
those big
Yeah.
ones,
I mean,
yeah.
you just put them on and you go,
Well,
oh
yeah,
my Lord.
You're not going to find those on
Yeah.
Craigslist.
But the best stuff is really expensive anymore.
Oh, I want to talk about something I bought on eBay last year. So I'm old, so I have memories of the Sennheiser HD414 headphone, which is a really big deal in the 60s and 70s. And they sold, I think, 11 million of them. It was massive. Because it sounded so much better than every other headphone up to that point, because it was the first open headphone. All other headphones in the 60s and 70s, big heavy cans. And along comes the HD414 and it's light and open. So it was a huge success. So I'm thinking, maybe that headphone isn't as good as I remembered it. but I think there's so many out there, I can find one on eBay. And I did. I found one on eBay for $66. The guy had the original sales receipt, he had the brochures, he had everything, and it was perfect, and he had new yellow ear cushions on it. And he sent it to me, and it doesn't sound like a contemporary headphone. It doesn't the highs are kind of soft, the bass is a little soggy, there's no deep bass. But in the mid-range, it was gorgeous sounding. And I wish they would bring it back. I wish they would keep the good parts of it, make it a little better here. Maybe even just recreate that one. But it was an amazing headphone, and they're easy to find and they're cheap. And if you're into headphones or you remember that headphone, you should get one.
How about the 8KG K1000?
Well, those are a little tougher to find.
They're a little tougher to find. But I've never heard a better headphone. For what it did, right?
Yeah, open.
It wasn't even, it was like off. It was
Yeah.
sitting off your head. I love those things. So yeah, vintage be some really cool stuff. DIY?
Actually, you have to come down to Capitol Audio Fest. It'll be Joe Roberts, myself, Blackie Pagano, I forget who else, Art Dudley, on that topic. Well, that's kind of where my heart came from. I mean, I came out of that historically. And you guys are you all live in America, I'm guessing, or the majority of you. If you go to Europe, or even Asia, that's the scene. They think this is like people buying obscene SUV gas guzzlers, you know? The idea of needing a 400-watt amplifier. I mean, if you really stop and sit alone and quiet in the hall and go, 400-watt amplifier, Class D. And then you look at the speakers that are upstairs, and even though I think there's a movement now towards more efficient or more sensitive speakers, there's an absurdity to the American audio scene that DIY people both here and in Europe recognized early on and go, get me out of here, folks. The best way to save money, you know, you can build this stuff. But I mean, at the end of the day, you still got to be able to recognize a good sounding amp when you hear it and have a good speaker. It's not so easy.
I want not a girly man amplifier. I want a giant amplifier with lots of bottles. There was a couple questions in the back. We'll come back to you. No? All the way in the back?
You were talking about title. What's your view on the MQA coding?
So we're I think isn't there an MQA forum that they're doing?
I don't think so. I don't think anybody would be on a panel.
I think it's the best way you're going to get to save money.
What?
MQA with proper DAC into a budget system, like the one I was saying. The $2,000 system with a DAC that'll play MQA will probably buy you more amazing sound than anything under 20 grand. And why? Because the source. I've got LPs. I put this LP on. I don't care how crappy your system is. It's going to sound really good when I put this record on. And MQA is kind of like that, man. It'll upstage. You know, it's there. You know, I think I'm a fan. It's a very controversial scheme, though.
Yeah, and I'm not a fan. Why is it controversial?
People who haven't heard it think they know what it is.
Well, but I've heard it. Because it's unpredictable, because some things on MQA sound really good, and some things on MQA don't.
SACD does the same. I mean, it's
no,
unpredictable.
but I mean in a different way.
Right.
And that a lot of manufacturers are not happy about giving over their technology to incorporate MQA in their DACs. That's a part of it. But I think the reason that MQA will succeed if it does, or could succeed, is that it makes the files smaller, so you can stream high res in a much smaller package. And that's a great thing, because you don't have to buy high res. You can stream it from Tidal or other places pretty soon, and that's a good thing. You know, I like Tidal and I like MQA in terms of having access to a lot of music that I wouldn't go out and pay for necessarily. So I get to try things, and I find things all the time actually, that I wouldn't have found otherwise, because I'm streaming it on Tidal on my computer, not in my system, and definitely on my phone, which is mostly how I listen to it, which isn't Tidal yet. But I think MQA's only chance of success is in a streaming world where it's making files smaller and therefore easier and cheaper to stream. That's really it. It's not really about making things sound better, which it may or may not do. Under the best of circumstances, it does. But I just want to say, I was supposed to have a meeting with the president of MQA a couple of months ago, and he called off the meeting that morning. I'm not sure why, and you can speculate why he didn't want to talk to me. But I was going to say to him, what I don't understand about MQA, and it's fundamental to this question of what MQA is and what it sounds like is, there's different MQAs. There's files that are sent to Meridian or Bob Stewart or people who work for them, and those files are, let's just say, mastered and fiddled with by MQA to make them sound better. And then there's MQA that they just jam through a magic MQA box and it comes out the other side MQA. So if somebody is, let's say, mastering it and thereby changing the sound of the music and it sounds better, well, that's great. But that's not what all MQA files will be. And you don't know, you the end user don't know which is which. And that's my biggest gripe against MQA.
That applies
Take it away,
to
Scott.
all
No,
reissues.
I'm not going to touch that one.
Okay.
No, actually, I agree. I reviewed a really cool DAC that's 44.1, just CD quality. Love that DAC. Border Patrol DAC, really inexpensive.
Yes, I agree.
And I had the moment where I really wasn't sure why I was bothering with high res, right? You sit there and Steve's right? There's this point, if it's high res or low res, it doesn't matter. If it's good sounding audio, it will sound better coming through a good system. Garbage in, garbage out. But
right.
I think that there's quite a lot of material that gets the high res treatment that doesn't deserve it, doesn't need it, and isn't benefited by it, but it's now high res, so now it's more money. I think that, in my humble opinion, I've got files from all different sources. The stuff that was really well curated and well cared for and managed by people who really gave a damn about what the end product's going to sound like tends to sound better, whether that's MQA or high res or SACD. Doesn't seem to have any rhyme or reason. So I'm ambivalent about any of those formats. I would rather see better mastering, right? Stuff that was done, like Bob Katz tends to really champion, the really large swing dynamic range file formats, right? And that can be 44.1. It could be 320 kilobits, right? But 44.1 is totally fine. If you have a system that can take advantage of that, you can have world-class audio. I mean, world-class.
Right. So there's no magic bullet. There's no thing that makes it automatically good.
I do want to say one thing. I've already been doing it here. I go to these shows, I review all these rooms. No matter how expensive the system, I have not seen a high-res file being played. I've only seen 44.1. Look at the machines. You're going to see 44.1. And a couple of people, I said, well, this is $1 million system. I'm listening to 44.1, and the guy leans back. He goes, I just play what I know sounds good. I challenge you, as you walk around upstairs, find me someone playing a high-res file, or a DSD even, for that matter.
What I discovered in my own system, I own about 6,000 CDs, and I have a very good system. And I decided to get into a music server. I got the Belcanto, RefStream, Synology, NASDrive, and in almost every case, 44.1 became magically transformed by not having to run at 700 RPM with error correction and servos going crazy. So if you have a big collection, you want to save a lot of money, don't replace it with high res. Get yourself a good server. And I want to take to task a lot of the reviewers when they review servers. They don't say whether it sounded better than the original CD player, which is the critical issue. Because there's no point in spending thousands of dollars on a server that won't make it sound.
Well, I mean, it depends on the player, right? So I've got an audio note player at home, and I've got a Belcanto. I've got the transports. I got the CD players, the combos, and they sound different. So how many reference points am I going to be pulling out? So I hear what you're saying, but I'm taking a good reviewer like these gentlemen tend to do their homework, and whether or not it's in the review or not, that's why there's comments fields. I think there was another comment before we get to you, sir. Hope that's okay. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah. Hi, some of this Steve Guttenberg made a really great point years ago that if you put a piano in the room and it doesn't sound good, stuff's not going to sound good. And Herb, I keep something bookmarked on my computer that talks about the room being vital and how speakers interact with the room and things like that. And when people come into my office, it has vintage gear. I've had AR4Xs since I've had an office in public accounting. And they've been, crossovers been upgraded, they've been restored, the whole bit. And people love them because we just pull the conference table back and say, play whatever you want.
Sure.
And that way you get, I'm not making them do anything, and they like it. And to put one more piece that I wanted to make earlier, when I first met David, who's not here, it was at The Show in '16. And I asked him to play the band's rocking chair in this tiny little room of ELAC debuts and a Nova 150.
Yeah.
And he just freaked. You could see it in his face, and I looked at him and says, play it. And we're sitting in this room that's all filled up, and everybody goes, this sounds great. And we bookmarked it to ourselves and got together afterwards and said, you know, we can sell this kind of a system to people who only have a small room and be pretty sure that they're going to get something that will make them happy and they'll listen to. And I thought that was a pretty good part in the, to say, okay, this kind of stuff will work. The bad part I have is like when you guys talk about wire, I'm kind of a technical person. If it meets the standard for USB going through there, you're going to have a hard time convincing me you're going to do anything to make that better.
I wouldn't do anything to try to convince.
And I can't talk about Ethernet because of NDAs, but there's way too much emphasis placed on a tiny little piece when the room, the speaker...
Everything matters, just not everything matters
right.
very much.
But as a reviewer, one thing that can, and I have to do this, I mean, I don't write about wire much, but I write about low-price systems. And Steve and I collaborate a lot. We listen to each other's systems. I've heard his system, you know, almost, you know, every couple of weeks. But what I need is the ability for the wire not to screw the thing up. And people will send me wire just because I have this new job. And so I could pretty much go upstairs and get any wire I want. But it has to have two requirements. Number one, it doesn't break when I take it apart every single day. Every day. I change my system almost daily. And number two, it's not screwing up the sound. And sometimes, like we're reviewing an amp, we're both doing a similar amp right now, and along the way we discovered, oh shit, cable matters. And it's some components really change, and it's not a defect in the component. You can trust me, this component was designed by a really competent person. But wire is different. When I built amps, in fact, I think I was one of the first people to actually say this along with Robert Fulton. And Richard Marsh was the guy who said, oh, capacitors all sound different. And we were friends, and I said, Richard, if that's true, then wire and resistors sound different. And what I've learned, and I was building amps in the 80s, is that there's more cooking to audio than there is engineering. And the mix of parts is like the quality of ingredients in something you're cooking. I swear it is. And cable is an ingredient. And you know, fresh oregano is very different than stale oregano. And you got to look at the parts that are in there, including, I don't know about digital cable, but you definitely have to look at these things as seasoning, or, you know, you don't want it to screw up your dish. You know, too much paprika will ruin anything.
I think audio, the whole audio hobby, is filled with belief systems. You know, people believe in tubes, people believe in analog, people believe in digital cables. And if they believe in it, they believe in it. If they don't, they don't. I mean, I did a thing in Stereophile a couple of years ago about vinyl versus digital. And I said, you know, in almost every way, digital measures better than vinyl. And I remember when I heard my very first CD, I expected it was perfect, right? I mean, I don't mean it in a cynical way. I mean that it had no wow and flutter. It had a razor flat frequency response. It had better separation than any cartridge. It had all these, it just blows away vinyl in every way. And I really expected that the band would materialize between my speakers, and I'd say, wow. Because I've been listening through noise and wow and flutter and all this stuff, and now I'm going to hear none of that. It's not improved, it's gigantically better. It's perfect. And it didn't happen. I said, you know, it's funny. I'm listening to this perfect format, and it sounds different. And I wasn't saying that digital sounds worse than analog at that point. I was just saying it didn't do, talk about placebo effect. I expected it to be way better. And I said, it's not better. It's just slightly different. And then, you know, high res came along, and BSD came along, and these things, but they sound different. And if you like vinyl, you should play vinyl. If you like digital, you play digital. But there's people in camps that only play vinyl, or camps only play digital, or only like tube amplifiers and think that solid state amplifiers all sound hard and bright and thin and stuff. So it's belief systems. And if people believe in cables or digital cables and think they hear a difference, whether or not they do, and it gives them satisfaction, then that's fine.
Does anybody here eat food from McDonald's? Right? Does anybody here like hamburgers? How about steak? Who here cooks their steak medium rare? Who eats their steak medium well? Don't raise your hand. The point is, I think exactly this, that all y'all are weird and different and do their things differently, and the fact that all of us are able to kind of agree that there are things that we like is kind of miraculous sometimes. You want to go ahead?
Yeah, I wanted to say something about master quality authenticated. I'm actually a fan, and it's partly
Sure.
because I've listened to music in all of its different forms. I've taken all my high-res discs and I've transferred them, and I've done analysis looking at Music Scope, and I think what 99% of audiophiles do not realize is most of the source material is not even as good as 9624. And I can't tell you how many discs that I've looked at where 8 of those 24 bits were zeros. The record industry had repackaged 16-bit data and put it in there, and your DAC lit up as 24 bits, and unless you were listening really carefully, you didn't know. And that's why most of those CDs are going to sound just as good. And this is a real big thing.
I'm shocked. No. I'm totally shocked.
No.
You know, it's interesting that you talk about that, because when Neil Young was hyping Pono, and he was saying high res is coming, and everything will be high res soon, I kept saying it's weird that all new music that comes out, most of it is 44.1, and most of it was recorded in 48.24. That is what like 80–90% of all current music is recorded in. And you know, and I said, why hasn't it changed? There's always talk about high res, and why isn't it changing? And I started asking engineers, how come there's not more music coming out in high res? And the answer is simply this: if you're recording audiophile, live to 2-track like Chesky does, well, that's easy to record in high res. But if you're recording Lady Gaga and she needs 100 tracks, you can't record 100 9624 tracks, except if you pay a lot of money to do that, right? So, meaning it's not going to happen anytime soon, and since actually budgets for making records are shrinking, not expanding, there's less and less likelihood there'll be more and more, despite what Neil Young was hyping. It just can't happen. And then whether or not it sounds better, well, you'd have to make a record that exploited the advantages of high res. Not to make a commercial for Chesky, but like Chesky or Reference or Todd Garfinkel does with MA recording, where you actually have dynamic range. John Atkinson once did a talk in front of AES, and he said, the average 78 RPM record has more dynamic range than most contemporary music. So if the music doesn't have dynamic range, having 24 bits or 16 bits doesn't make any difference. That's what the bits are supposed to be doing. But if it doesn't have dynamic range, it doesn't matter.
78s are coming back.
I believe it. Yes. Oh, I forgot.
Back. Good.
What?
Thank you.
Circling back.
When you're shopping for components, again, the brick and mortar is great. You can go and listen and everything, get your opinion as opposed to an expert's.
Right.
But again, there's a lot of variables. this brick and mortar place is different than this, and everything is fed through different sources.
Right.
And then you start reading the reviews, and all of a sudden you're all mixed up.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
So are the reviewers.
Yeah.
I speak for myself,
Is
of
there a
course.
question there?
How do you do a good job of trying to determine what you want?
You know what? The very first thing, if you're doing what you just described, is you have to bring music with you so that there is at least one constant. And hopefully it's well-recorded music. So that as you're going from store to store and hearing all these different combinations of things, at least something is the same, right? But at the end, your job isn't to, you're not doing a research project, you're buying a piece of equipment to play music on. So the store that you feel most comfortable in, that's listening to you, to your needs, and also has stuff that you thought sounded really good, that's the place where you should buy
And that
it.
fits your budget.
And fits your budget. That's where you should buy it. Because the one that is out there in all those combinations that you just described, sorry, you may not get that magic bullet. That may not happen. But if you buy it in a place that you like and they're listening to you and the price is right, and et cetera, and it sounded really good, that's the place to buy it.
So we have about 10 more minutes.
I have sort of an answer to that, a different answer to
Oh,
the
good.
question. One of the things that you mentioned was the reviewers. The reviewers, they get all the equipment delivered in their living space, and they get to listen to it in the spaces that they're able to listen to it in. The way that I've accomplished it via Craigslist is I buy the stuff, bring it into my house, listen to it in my environment, tweak it, do whatever I want with it. If it's better than what I got, I keep it. If it's not, it's back on Craigslist.
Well, that works too.
That's one way to
I
do it.
spent 80% of what I know came from that method. I went through a period when I was buying and selling equipment for a living, and so I just got to listen to everything, and it's really good. I mean, there's no substitute for practice. You know, this applies in everything. You know, love, life, food, everything.
But people like me can't afford to do that if you go to the store because you're paying retail and then you have to sell it at used prices. Whereas if you're buying it at used prices, sometimes you make a little bit of money, sometimes you lose a little bit of money. But it all comes out in the wash.
Depending on the store and depending on what it is, they may let you try it at home.
A good store would. I want to follow up on that. That the experience here is like the key. I've read a lot of folks, and I used to be a new reviewer. This may be a little outside of your experience for a while. That was an old joke. I'm sorry. Okay.
I never get jokes.
It was
in one of the videos.
You know, I used to write reviews, things I liked. This was really awesome. This was really the best thing. No, this was really the best thing. No, this was really the best thing, and this was the best thing, and then this was the best thing, and everything I tried was better and better and better because I didn't know anything. I don't know that I do know anything, but what I have heard at this point is quite a lot, and that's one of the main reasons I'm hoping that you're here at the Rocky Mountain Audio Fest. It's not perfect. It's not a laboratory. It's a weird cross-section, but you'll see stuff. So go to an audio show, go to your dealer, go talk to your friend, go hang out at their house. All of this helps. Every exposure helps. I had a lock, what I thought would be the perfect audio system. I knew it was the cat's meow because I'd heard it and I got it and I loved it. And I went to an audio show the next weekend and I thought I had just killed myself. And it took me 10 years to be able to afford the stuff that I wanted then, after I had already had my lock. I just didn't have enough experience. But I think at some point you just gotta bite the bullet and go with it. But I can't encourage people enough to come to a place like this and see, try, and hear, and play, and talk. And do me a favor, do me personally a favor, and close the computer. Don't read what you'll find online in a forum, or even what we wrote until it makes sense to you. This stuff that we do is one tool among many tools, but don't take my word for it. Just use my. I'm just speaking just for me. Use my stuff, what I write, what my friends write, as a reference point. This is what I liked or didn't like at this time in this place with this stuff. It's
know,
not truth, it's just my opinion.
I agree, but the thing is, I think reviewers that have a lot of experience and have heard hundreds, thousands of speakers and amplifiers and stuff, so what they're bringing is that experience of hearing it and knowing it well. But you know, at the end of the day, I want to say something about the audio reviewer job. And I think the main thing about writing audio reviews is making them interesting. It isn't Consumer Reports. It's not like, it isn't a research project. It's like, here's my experience with this product, here's what's cool about this product, and how I felt it sounded, and what I thought, you know, what it did well, what it didn't do well. But how that applies to the reader, you know, it's frustrating for me because the 16 years I spent selling high-end audio, where I could have a dialogue with the customer, and I would play speaker, 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 and they would tell me, and they would say, what do I care? What do I think? I said, it doesn't matter what I think about the speaker. It's what you think about it, and tell me what you're hearing to the best of your ability, and we're going to try to take this journey and get to the end result. That was my job as a salesman. But as a hi-fi reviewer, an audio reviewer, I'm just describing what it is to the best of my ability and hopefully making it interesting enough to read that you get to the end of the review. That's it. It's not Consumer Reports. It's not going to tell you this is the best one for you. Can't happen, unfortunately.
Steve, I have to, and this is something I'm pretty sure this is an experience I just had today and an experience I'll have when I go home. And I'm curious how many of you have this one. I come to a show like this, I hear all these, you know, go to all these rooms, hear all these systems. First thing I do when I go home is turn on my own system, which is really modest in terms of price. And I did this recently. I came from listening to his system.
We know how expensive your guys' stuff.
But he had a system at his house that was just, it arguably was the best system I'd ever heard. And I went home to turn mine on. And it sounded pathetic.
Oh.
Now, I came here just now before we were here together. I listened to a system, at least $500,000. And they played a song that I've listened to about 5 times in the last couple weeks. And I've listened to it on a CD that I bought at Tower Records. And they were playing this on a really big, expensive system. And I'm sitting there going, it ain't even close to the $5,000 system I was listening to before I came here. And it goes back and forth. But when I go home from this show, I'm going to put my system on and just see how it sounds after I'm here. And I'm sure you all, I'd be shocked if you said you didn't do this. Like, okay, I heard all this fancy stuff. How does my system sound?
And usually you're pretty happy with what you got.
Yeah, that was my point.
I've never had any reason to say, after coming one of these, oh my God, I should upgrade this.
Right, that's my point. Thank you.
There you go.
I have. So, sir?
I have a question. Are there any manufacturers, given that we're all at the show, we're going to be looking at stuff, are there any manufacturers, especially maybe some that are less well known, that you might recommend that we take a look at that are not the usual suspects? Like NAD's on my list right now, ELAC for sure, but are there other low cost?
Audio Engine.
I don't know because I haven't seen the show.
Audio Engine, if you can find them, if they're here, I don't even know. They make great stuff.
HS Zoo Research. They're not here this year.
Zoo Research. Yeah, they make good subwoofers.
Oh no, really?
Zoo Audio.
Well, they do speakers as well.
Zoo Audio.
Well, he's talking about
I
sound.
know, but what's that?
Oh, HSU.
Zoo.
HS. They're not here this year. They've been here every year up until now. But that real giant slayer in my
Absolutely.
That's what I like about the low cost. I could afford more expensive stuff, but it's fun finding the value of the
Well, the most fun company of all, to be very biased, is Shit Audio.
Absolutely. I'm gonna. That's one company I will.
And they have a new product, an equalizer, a 4-band equalizer. Tone controls are back in high-end audio for $149.
You don't even need wire. Don't even need to do it through wire.
Yeah. Diddle the control.
I think we're getting a cutoff message.
And Emotiva, absolutely.
The build is amazing for Blend.
Hey, Steve, you found a $100 AB amp about 2 or 3 years ago. Do you remember that? Where you found that online? Was it Dayton Audio?
Yes. It was Dayton.
It was Dayton.
Yeah.
So there are
And
lots of little places you can go to find super, super cheap deals. Magnepans, I think not super, super cheap, but it's really good bang for the buck.
The new MGI, which is $650 a pair, a full range ribbon speaker made in the United States, $650. It's pretty nice. Very nice. So maybe we should end on that.
All right, everybody. Thanks very much.
Yes,
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.